Hey guys, Vizais here, and into this video we're gonna learn how to decide and how to know which champions scale better, which team composition scale better, and how can you also know who is better in the later stages. Are they gonna win late? Are they gonna scale? We're gonna see 5 the most important things that they can help you to decide who is outscaling better. So let's take a look at this. So the first things, as you can actually see here right here, is the champion, your champion versus the enemy champion in a vacuum, so in an isolated case. So for example, in the case that we actually have on the screen, we can simply see that we have a Jinx in a vacuum with a Xayah. So of course, any player can say, yeah man, okay, Jinx against Xayah, it's easy, you know, Jinx outscales better, at more items she's gonna have more crit, so it's just easier to play the game for her. She has more range, and with her AoE and with her kit, it's pretty easy to actually play the game. So this is actually true in this matchup, but obviously when you actually think about outscaling, you need to take a lot more things into consideration. Yeah, so of course in this case Jinx is going to scale better. Usually crit AD carries, they scale better than non-crit AD carries like Swain AD carry, or like AP carry, I guess you can say, Ezreal or you know, stuff like that. Usually crit AD carries, they scale better. So the second most important thing that I need to think about, as we can see here, is the allied champions and the synergy. For example, if I play Caitlyn, or if I play Caitlyn Morgana is actually making Caitlyn work for 120% of her power. If I play Caitlyn Yuumi, the Caitlyn is going to be at around 75% of the power, because obviously the synergy with your support matters a lot. If I play Jinx, I can have 100% power. If I play it with a Thresh, I have 110% power. If I play Jinx and I have a Lulu, I have 110% power. If I have a Milio, I have 125% power. So actually I'm more powerful based on what support I have, or based on what jungle. Maybe I have Ivern on the jungle, maybe I have top lane Karma, maybe I have a mid lane Lulu. It depends on the champions and the synergy that you have, specifically on bot lane, but also in the overall game. And of course on bot lane it depends. Below master tier, the matchup on bot lane depends, like it matters a lot more. Of course, if you play Kog'Maw without Lulu, he's around 60% of the power in general. If you play with Lulu, he's gonna go to double, 120%. Why? It's because, as we might know, obviously Lulu with Kog'Maw is like very OP, so obviously his power is bigger. Third thing that I need to take into consideration is your team composition. And of course you need to engage if you have an engage, if you need to think if you have an engage, if you have split push, or whatever you have in that team composition. It's quite important for you to actually think about these things as well. So for example, in this comp, for example, as you can see, you have Milio, GP, Aurelion Sol, Jace, and Jhin. So they don't really have engage. They do have lots of poke. Jhin is also quite OP in the lane. Aurelion is scaling really good, even though it's jungle. You have GP top lane, but they don't really have tank, and that's really the problem, right? Because Jhin won't really have, he will have a big problem against the enemy comp. So here they don't have engage, and every team have a lot of engage. They have better split push really. I mean, realistically speaking, Kassadin wins the split push later on against Jace, only super late game, and then Malphite loses actually against GP. But realistically speaking, if Malphite is gonna force a fight on the Jhin, he has no counterplay, so he's getting outscaled really hard. First of all, your champion versus enemy champion in a vacuum, the Jhin gets outscaled really hard against Aphelios usually, but also the fact that Jhin has a worse composition against Aphelios makes the things even harder for him. The next thing that need to think about is the enemy composition, as we actually talk about right now. A Jhin is gonna use his power at 100%, but a Jhin versus a Malphite, a Jhin versus a Cyan, he's already dropping at 80 to 75%, so this is not good. So the team composition, the enemy team composition matters a lot. And obviously there are a lot of situations where let's actually pick a random game from a random guy in like high diamond Vest. So in this case, for example, let's say they have Ezreal right here, and Ezreal is playing against Sett, Karthus, Nafari, Rakan, Xayah. This is quite easy to play for Ezreal, but if you think about how easy it is to play for the Kai'Sa, you will see that, wait, it's not that easy. You play against Lissandra, so it's very difficult to play Kai'Sa against Lissandra, very difficult to play against Syndra because she does have a lot of range and it's gonna be very hard for you to hit. Yes, some of you could say, yeah bro, but he has Rakan, he has Engage. Well, true, but other than Rakan...
Are you an AD carry main struggling to make an impact in your games? Is your damage output disappointingly low, leaving you feeling frustrated and powerless in the role you love? Introducing our specialized coaching program designed to supercharge your AD carry performance. Imagine a world where your damage, decision making and farming skills are 10 times better and the outcome of your games is no longer left to chance. Meet Chase, just like you, he was once stuck in the same position, facing low damage and inconsistency in his games. Let's see what happened after his coaching experience, from Diamond 4 to Master Tier. Wow! And here is Jordan and Brett, both transformed into formidable AD carry after the coaching session. These success stories aren't just isolated cases, they are a part of a community of over 3,243 players who benefited from the coaching program. If it worked for them, why not for you? Picture yourself as an unstoppable AD carry. It's not a dream, it's your potential with the coaching session. Don't wait any longer, visit Visite.com, book your coaching and become the AD carry the enemy team hates to play against.
Other than Rakan, he doesn't really have much CC in jungle mid lane. He does have some CC in top lane, but if the Syndra plays it really good and the Sejuani plays it really good with Darius, Seth should not be able to get on top of the Syndra, on top of the Lissandra. Lissandra anyways has Aftershock, ulti, so it's gonna be very difficult for Kai'Sa to actually outscale Ezreal. The reason why that's the case is because Kai'Sa in a vacuum, sure, some of you could say, coach, but Kai'Sa is outscaling Ezreal, isn't it a crit AD carry? I'm sure it's a crit AD carry, even with lethality, she can outscale Ezreal quite easy, depending on the matchups of course, but in this case, as we can see, the compositions matter a lot, because even though we can say that in a vacuum the Kai'Sa outscales, that is not true in this specific case because of the composition. So the composition matters a lot as well. Very important. And the last thing, obviously this is very complex, the last thing is the build, summon spell objectives, as in, what do I mean by build? Well, obviously if you play, for example, if I just check a look at this game, for example, I play Vayne with a Kraken Slayer and Trinity against Nasus, so this is playable, you know. But if I had, for example, a Storm Razor, which is a bad build into tanks, and I didn't really get cut down, which is extremely good against Nasus, in that case, then I would scale a little bit slower. So this is what I mean, that the build can also influence your ability to scale. If I buy Static Shift, I go second item Trinity, third item you know, Bloodthirster or PD, I scale a lot worse compared to if I get Borg first item against the Nasus, or at least Static Shift and then Borg second item, and third item I also get something that, you know, can keep me alive or either do more damage on the Nasus. The damage, the build is gonna affect your ability to outscale or not outscale. So this, all of these things, they matter. Second of all, obviously, other than the build, you have the summon spells. If we actually see here a composition where they have heal and they have no exhaust, and we have Vayne in the AD carry, we have Talon jungle, and we have Zed. Of course, a Zed outscales 10 times better if the enemy team have 0 exhaust compared to if they have 2 exhaust. Also, Zed is scaling really well anyways. He's one of the best champions in the game in terms of scaling on mid lane with the Hydra, with the new build. He used to be bad, but now he's like really OP. So this is what I mean by summon spells and how much they can influence the way you outscale, the power that you outscale. And obviously you have the objectives here as well. Like depending on some compositions, they like to get soul. If they get soul, they scale better. You know, some of the compositions they need more damage with the Infernal Soul. Some of them they need more movement speed. Some of them they need more cooldown. So it just depends on what soul you have and what composition you have. Depending on that, you'll scale worse or you'll scale better. And this is what we're gonna do right now. We're gonna actually see 3 compositions that we're gonna actually check only. We're not gonna talk about the Drakes so much. We're actually gonna talk about only the AD carry matchup and who is gonna scale better, because the Drakes matchup is pretty complex, and actually I would say that I don't actually know how to do it extremely well, because you have to know exactly what the Drakes do, exactly the percentages of the movement speed, exactly the percentages of the cooldown, and you have to fundamentally understand the game really well with the Drake. So on AD carry, you don't really need that. You need to know a bit about the Drake, you need to have good game knowledge, but it's more about mechanics, the macro, other things that are more important. So here, let's take a look. So we have Jinx here. so again, we actually apply the rules, okay? So I say the first rule is your champion versus enemy champion in a vacuum. I mean, okay, Jinx outscales Xayah, easy peasy, you know, I can say that, easy peasy. So we have Jinx here, Jinx outscales better. The allied champions and the synergy. Jinx with Janna is really good. Jinx with Tahm Kench is really good. Jinx with Yasuo, no synergy. Jinx with Gragas, no synergy. Okay, Xayah with Soraka, I mean, you can argue that she has peel, but realistically speaking, Xayah needs kinda an engage because she's already a good disengager champion, meaning that she likes to disengage, she likes to back off, she likes to actually use her ultimate in order for her to not get caught. So I don't think Soraka is really gonna help her a lot. You can argue that, yeah man, but you know, she has the silence. Yeah, I agree, she has the silence, so she's not like useless, but I would pick Draven Soraka. I would rather pick picks with Soraka, not Soraka Xayah. So I would say that also in terms of the synergy, I would say that Jinx is also better in this game. And okay, your team composition. So the Jinx actually here, she has what does she have here? So she has good engage with the Gragas. She has Gragas Yasuo in the mid lane, and then she has Tahm Kench top lane that can both peel and engage. So this is pretty good composition. The Xayah is actually having no engage. I mean, okay, you can argue that they have Gangplank ulti and Rumble ulti, which is actually decent, but into Janna is actually not good enough because Janna has a lot of disengage, so you need like a Malphite or something, maybe an Ornn Horn. So it will actually, you will balance it out the fact that, you know, they have Janna, you have a lot of engage, so you can just run over her. So Xayah, at least she's really good into Yasuo, Gragas, Tahm Kench. Like these three people are like no counterplay. But when it comes to team composition, I still think that the Jinx has better team compositions with her champions compared to Xayah, even though Xayah here is a great pick actually into these three champions right here. So there is that. Okay, next one is enemy team composition. Yeah, we talked about it, you know, this guy has a better composition than this guy. And then we also need to talk about the build. We see that Jinx is building the normal build with Infinity Second, Kraken Slayer, and the Mortal Reminder, Hurricane. He has a lot of damage. And then Xayah actually goes for Lord Dominic's, of course, but I mean, realistically speaking, playing Xayah against Tahm Kench full tank Gragas is so hard to play against as an AD carry because he always has ulti, so he can disengage, and it's pretty scary. So it's hard to play against Gragas. Against Gragas Yasuo, it's even harder. Against Yasuo in general as an AD carry, it's harder because he has the wind wall. So it's just a pain. It's just a pure pain. Jinx outscales by far in this specific situation. This is the verdict. Let's go for the next one. Let's go for the next one right now. We have the next situation right here. So here, we have Ezreal. So in a vacuum with the Twitch, obviously Twitch is winning really hard. So Twitch is winning extremely hard. Okay, we just put a T here. Okay, the allied champions here, it's Ezreal with Galio. Pretty decent synergy if you think about it, because he has PTA with Ezreal, so he can win the lane phase pretty hard. Galio has Ignite, sure. Whatever. Okay, so then you have Twitch Janna. I mean, Twitch Janna is much better. Because Twitch Janna can always disengage. Twitch Janna can always disengage. If Ziale goes in, Janna has Tornado, they have Exhaust, it's gonna be very difficult. So Twitch Janna is gonna outscale as well. The team composition, I mean, we have good engage here on Sion. Jarvan Zed is gonna be a pain for Twitch, but he has Janna, so we need to think about that. And then Twitch has no engage. Darius is not a reliable engage that you wanna have, especially because you play Darius into Zed and you know, Ezreal. It is not easy for Darius to actually walk up unless he's really strong. And then we see here, yeah, they have better like the Ezreal composition is much better. In this case, they have more engage. I mean, you can argue they are full AD. That's the only big problem really they have. But they do have engage. They do have disengage. Twitch, the guy with Viego is gonna have a hard time to get to an Ezreal, especially with Exhaust. So in this case, I personally think that it's slightly better the comp of Ezreal. That's the only disadvantage is the full AD, which you could argue that Ezreal has some AP damage anyways into his kit. And anyways, only the Darius can actually build armor in his kit, which is actually not enough. You could argue that. I think slightly the team composition of Ezreal is better. Enemy team composition, yeah, as we said, Ezreal. Okay, Ezreal is better. Enemy composition is worse for sure. And then build, summon, spell, and objective. So the build of Ezreal, obviously he goes Cyril, the third item. It's really good into Darius. He goes Exhaust. It's really good into Darius because he can't walk up on him, and it's good into Viego as well. It's decent into Ahri as well. The Twitch has Ghost, which always is gonna be really good. The thing is, Ghost into like Jarvan ulti, Galio ulti, Zed. it's a bit hard. You know, the thing is he has the Janna, so it's very difficult to know. I think the build is really good for him into this composition. Him having Janna right here, I think overall, all in all, Twitch outscales better. Yes, you can argue, yeah bro, but it's so hard to get to Ezreal. He can scale better. Twitch will have a harder time. He will have hard time, but he has Janna and he's also Twitch against Ezreal, so we're comparing two champions that, so even though here the team composition, Ezreal wins 7 out of 10 times, right, in the composition, because he has a better comp. If you're thinking about which champion is better late game, Twitch wins against Ezreal 9 out of 10 times, or like 9.5 out of 10 times. So even though you could say, oh yeah bro, but you know, in your stats analysis, you know, in 2 out of in like from 5 aspects that you're thinking about, in 2 aspects, you know, Twitch wins, and in 2 aspects the Ezreal wins. How do you decide then? Well, you decide based on how big the difference is. For example, the difference between the composition, this composition is slightly better than this composition, but in terms of the difference between the champions that scale better in a vacuum, Twitch scales much better than the Ezreal. So if you compare this and you try to be like, okay, we're slightly better in the composition, but in terms of the scaling in a vacuum, we're a lot better with Twitch. So then Twitch outscales better in this specific situation. And let's see the next situation right here. We have another Janetta game here, I think. Okay, so this is the same game. We just close it out and we have one more here. Okay, so in a vacuum, of course, the Vayne versus Varus, Vayne wins. Then in terms of the synergies, Vayne Sona against Varus Janna. Well, Vayne Sona right here, not really best synergy. They all need to play safe. I mean, Sona doesn't have, I mean, you can argue that Sona is a counter to Janna though, which can be true. The problem is that Varus is so much better than Vayne in early game, so Zane is gonna have a really hard time, especially because if we think about the composition, the Graves is useless. He's useless because he has no setup on bot lane with Sona. He also has no CC, so he can't really punish Varus or help Vayne early on. So if Hecarim is gonna play bot lane, he's gonna get Vayne behind, the enemy just win. They win 3v3 pretty hard, Varus, Janna and Hecarim. So we went pretty fast on that. This is how you really have to think about the outscaling, because even though Vayne scale is good, you also have to think about Vayne against Nasus. It's pretty easy, but Nasus is not going to be useless, especially with a lot of items. Hecarim is very hard to play, even though the Vayne has cleanse. Zerat is very hard to play against as Vayne. Varus is very hard to play against as Vayne. Janna is very hard to play against Vayne. Okay, for Varus, Vayne is super easy. For Varus, Echo is super easy. For Varus, Graves is pretty easy, especially with the Janna. All of these 3 champs are easy. Against Malphite, it's tricky. No AD carry is good against Malphite, really. I mean, there are some specific, some exceptions, but with the Janna, I think Malphite can be doable, and then Varus into Sona is also pretty good. So do you guys see what I'm saying with the outscaling? It's like, oh, you know, Vayne outscales Varus. No, it doesn't outscale Varus in this case. No, not at all. You have Echo top lane, you have Graves jungle that can't pressure the bot lane at all. You're not outscaling. You, like in this case, if this is like Grandmaster, Master, whatever, I would dodge 100%. I'll 100% dodge. There is no reason to play for Vayne here. Okay, if you're in Platinum Emerald, you know, you just play good, you're much better than Varus, you know, you just... Okay, maybe in that case you can just play the game. I mean, okay, sure, no, and draft doesn't matter that much then. But in this case, like, okay, Varus scales pretty good. And let's also think about Varus. It's with Janna. Janna has exhaust. We're thinking about the summon spells. Janna with Varus. Janna is making the Varus be on steroids, and it's just gonna be hard. It's just gonna be hard. This is really the reality. This is really the reality here. So this is basically how we actually do it. Guys, thank you so much for watching this. Like, subscribe, everything. Thank you so much for being a Patreon if you're seeing this on Patreon. And let me know if you have any questions. I'll be here in the comments or on Discord. Make sure to join Discord as well. Thank you so much for watching, guys. See you in the next video. Bye bye.
$5. If you have problems improving and getting better in the game faster but cannot afford booking coaching, on my Patreon you can access more than 627 VOD reviews, premium videos about how to wave management, mid-game macro, and tier lists that will show you the best champions to climb and to improve for your elo. And these are not on YouTube, this is only on Patreon, they're exclusive. Moreover, you can participate in the free coaching waiting list to get a premium VOD review. I'm giving away 2 free VOD reviews every single week. All what you need to do is simple 2-step process. Subscribe to my Patreon and share your OPGG, and voila, you are on the waiting list. You're gonna get a personalized VOD review for any game in your match history. For just $5, you get not only the free VOD review, but a whole bunch of exclusive benefits that will supercharge your gaming experience. It's a small investment for a big return. And it's just $5, it's no brainer, right? But here is the deal, you've got to act quickly. The waiting list is already filling up fast. 55 people already subscribed to the Patreon, and there are 6 people that they are on board, they are on the waiting list. And more are joining every moment. Now, do you want to secure your spot for a free VOD review? Go ahead on my Patreon and reserve it right now.